What's going on, YouTube? My name is Dave Sarner, and I'm the host of the Rise and Fall Fantasy Football Show. Welcome to the Week 5 edition. Now, in today's episodes, we are joined again by our co-host, Matthew Ferreira from the 4th and 1 Pod, as we break down every single matchup for Week 5, identify every single player that you guys need to have in your lineups. Now, in previous episodes, we did our news, notes, and updates at the beginning of the episode before all the game analysis. However, this week we decided to do that per game basis, so when you click on those timestamps, you'll get your news, notes, and updates for that particular game right before you get our analysis. Now, without further ado, enjoy the episode. All right, moving along here. Yes. Yeah, baby. I think we're still on 1 o'clocks here, but listen.
Yes. This is the last of the 1 o'clock game.
Right.
So
I was going to say, we're close.
After this,
yeah, so we're close. All right, Matt. Let's do this. Los Angeles Rams head into Washington. Former offensive coordinator, now head coach, better team, coming in to face a still kind of figuring themselves out Washington football team. Let's call them that for right now.
Yeah.
This is a weird matchup for me because it's like I love Sean McVay, but I also love my team and I want us to beat them. I actually think, especially if Chase Young is back this week, Matt, that Jared Goff, now I'm going to just click here real quick. Washington is 11th against quarterbacks. I think if Chase Young comes back, it's going to be a little
that's kind of shocking. I agree.
Very deceiving stat right there. And I
what
think
is
that
his
was
status?
It was a minor injury, so it might just be like a week. He might be out another week. What I'm getting at is if he's in, Kendall Fuller came back 2 weeks ago. Since Kendall Fuller's come back, he's one of the top-ranked corners in the league right now. 2 picks last week. That secondary is really good, actually. Ronald Darby's playing well. Fabian Moreau's good. Jimmy Moreland. The safeties suck. Landon Collins is good at box safety, but their free safeties, Troy Apke is just terrible. But if they have the pass rush in that secondary, I do kind of like, I'm not as sold rather on Jared Goff this week. I think the 11th could be a little bit of struggle because I do think Washington took a little step forward. Listen, Dwayne Haskins, 314 yards. You can say what you want. He didn't turn the ball over. He had a rushing touchdown, 18 points. It wasn't him last week. It was more play calling, and just the game script in general was not great how we did it. I hope they clean it up. It could very well be similar. So the Rams, I could very well eat this whole prediction. But Matt, Jared Goff will be high. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to rank him somewhat high. I'm just not as high. He might be a faller, and this could be a little bit of a trap for him because that secondary, again, Washington's pretty stingy against wide receivers. Now, tight ends, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett could be a week for them. But if Chase Young is back now with Kendall Fuller, Matt, this is what I was getting at. I think they could be a little bit more dynamic, and that will be the full strength. They haven't been that the entire year so far. So I got to see if Chase Young's back. If he's not, I like Goff. I mean, they'll play it tough, no doubt about it. But this is gonna be all based on Washington.
Yeah.
That offense can get out of its own way and protect the football. And listen, our defense did struggle last week against Baltimore, no doubt about it. That's why the quarterback ranking is a little higher than it should. But they played pretty well against the more passing guys. So that being said, I think when I look at these stats here, the guy I love the most, obviously the matchup really brings this, is Tyler Higbee. Gerald Everett snatched a touchdown last week. I actually predicted that. So that kind of pissed me off a little bit that he actually did that. But that all being said, I don't think it's going to be an every week thing. This could, I've seen tight ends just literally shred this defense like a hot knife through butter. And I think it could happen again this week from the linebacker position. Tyler Higbee or Gerald Everett could have a decent game, but I think Tyler Higbee is the guy who is going to be really high on my list this week, a bounce back week for him. And even though I have Robert Tonyan, I mean, he's on bye, so I'm going to go with Higbee anyway. But Matt, even though I have both of them, if I had Tonyan, part of me would have still kind of gone Higbee this week based on this great matchup they have. I know you're not high on him too, so.
But that's. Yeah, all right.
So other than that, though, let me ask you. There's 2 areas, though, that they have trouble. All right. Washington's surprisingly very stingy against the running game. 23rd most points, or least points against, right? 31st in points against for wide receivers. They're very stingy against wide receivers. Yet this team has wide receivers. Do we see a tough matchup here for Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp? Or does Dwayne Haskins' offense kind of fuck everything up and they somehow still get good, production?
Curious. And like, go back to, let me see the stats again for each defense.
So this is against, so they're very stingy.
That is fucking stingy. Brutal. And I gotta feel like a lot of that, stinginess against the wide receivers is actually coming from the quarterbacks. Position,
and
like the fact they're constantly under duress.
And the point that let me just add this real point to help you with the decision too, from the quarterback standpoint. Also, the reason why they're 11th against quarterbacks. Look who they played in their first 2 out of 3 weeks from a running standpoint. They had Kyler Murray in week 2, Lamar Jackson last week who had a 50-yard touchdown run. So remember the big production. They fucked Wentz's day up week 1.
And, oh my god! And still feel bad for him.
And if you go back to the stats, Baker didn't have great stats either. They didn't get the pass game going there. It was a run game in our own, got in our own way. So
and Odell did Odell things,
right? Yeah. And they had short field, so he got some easy touchdowns there in the passing game. So be mindful when I say, Goff is a sneaky, not great play. He has to run it to yeah. I mean, he has to, you know what I mean though. He has to run it to get it going. So I think I'm a little down on these receivers personally. I think if they get like a touchdown or they have some really good points, one of them is going to get like a rushing touchdown or something to do so.
Yeah, I can see that.
Now the running backs, Matt, I don't even know what to do with these guys. I don't know. I have no idea. Darrell Henderson had a down week. Malcolm Brown now the better guy. I dropped Cam Akers in my other league. Do I pick him back up? Is he going to be the guy? What do we do with this running back situation?
You don't touch it for right now. You pick if you're playing any one of these 6 options for this game, it's Gibson.
I agree. And that was one of our hits of the week, essentially, or all hits of the week if you want. But Gibson, we'll get down to them. He is going to have a good game, I think, in my opinion. Even though it's a little tough of a matchup, 19th overall, I do love Antonio Gibson this week. Definitely get the volume. He's getting the receptions now. He's getting the carries, and he's 3 touchdowns in 3 games. He won't score every week, so he was a little touchdown dependent in 2 of those weeks. But I think the receptions can make you feel a little better from last week. We go back to those stats, Matt. 5 for 4, 82 yards receiving. And if anyone knows about his college days, he was a receiver and played a little bit of running back. So the fact that he could do both, it's very Le'Veon Bell-like in his prime. Not saying he is that, but very similar type of potential production that he can give you on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
From a reception standpoint, he can give you like these, 82-yard games receiving on screens and stuff like that, or he can give you some of the rushing. Pretty damn good between the tackles. I think they just have to get it going offensively more.
Yeah, I feel that.
Terry McLaurin on the other side of that, Matt. Listen, it's a tough matchup, no doubt about it.
You got to play him now. He's a borderline stud at this point. You got to play him.
10 targets last week and 14 targets last week, 10 catches, 118 yards.
Yeah.
He gets chunks every time I see a PFF
he's
stat
like
about
second
top 5
or third
receivers
in terms of yak. Yeah, you have to play him. You have to.
And Dwayne, you could say no touchdowns, but hey, 300 yards against Baltimore. That's not terrible at all, man.
No, not at all.
Even if it's garbage time, I still like it because even if this matchup goes to garbage time, they're going to do that again. So we talked about it before, Matt. 63%, I believe. I really think it's 83%, but over 50% of the overall production from the skill position on offense, those 2 guys. So you're going to throw him in your lineup. You're not touching anyone else. Logan Thomas, I think it's a decent matchup, but I don't like him this week at all.
Yeah.
Dwayne, you're not going to put in even after a decent game. No one has him, so it's not a big deal for that. Rams defense, they're projecting 10. I don't know if I love it. I think that they can do something. Now, granted, Aaron Donald against this line is going to be a problem. So I do think there'll be some sacks. But listen, if Dwayne has turnovers, yes, it could be. It's a very hit or miss. It's all dependent on Dwayne. I think they took a step in the right direction. He held onto the ball. Listen, he only has turnovers in 1 of his first 3 games. So just keep that in mind from a quarterback standpoint. He's not exactly turning the ball over all the time. He's just been kind of very Alex Smith with how they ran the offense.
Yeah.
So to recap, Matt, is there anything else you want to add? I kind of talked a little bit because it's my team.
I mean, it's your team. That's what I'd expect. No, I think we're good on that end.
All right, so yeah, no Dontrell Inman, no Logan Thomas, no Washington defense this week. Obviously, it's a tough matchup. Uh, I'm a little lower on Rams defense, but the must starts, you guys are going to start him: Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, Tyler Higbee. Great start this week. Again, Washington really does struggle against tight ends. I mean, their linebackers still can't cover them.
Yeah.
And trust me, Troy Apke will let something go. So you can bet on that. It could be Gerald Everett, but I'm going to bank on Tyler Higbee in the hopes because I need it.
Yeah.
Wide receivers, we are down on this week. You're going to start them if you have them, but just be mindful. It could be a down week for them. One of them might play well. I think it could be very similar to what they saw last week. You guys played them really well. I think we're going to play them just as well. Running backs, listen, I'm not touching these guys. I don't want them in my lineup. I don't like committees unless they have some really defined roles, and it doesn't seem to be the case here at all.
Yeah.
So I'm out on him. Jared Goff, be mindful. It's a great matchup. People are going to tell you to start him. Listen, I'm going to tell you and go against the grain here and say he will not have a good week. Next matchup up, Matt, the Dolphins at the 49ers. This is actually, you know what? If you told me at the beginning of the year that this is going to be a matchup that I would be excited for, I would have been like, nah. Nah, like Jimmy's not exciting. The offense isn't crazy exciting. Miami's Miami. But I actually really like this matchup. I think it could be a really interesting defensive battle first and foremost.
Okay.
I like Miami's defense is playing pretty well. Listen, they played Seattle, probably the best that Seattle has gotten this year.
Yeah, Seattle was not. I don't think expect that. They still played very well, but I don't think they were expecting this game to come as close as it did.
Yep, exactly. And I do think that San Fran does show up on defensive side of the ball, and I think they're going to get some turnovers on Ryan Fitzpatrick this week. So I do like San Fran's D, even though it is a tough matchup, no doubt about it. There's going to be some points scored. I just think this is going to be one of the lower scoring games. I think it's going to be very big defensive. I'd be very hard pressed to say I like Miami's defense because Kittle. I mean, he just shat on everyone last week, including me, by the way, in my in one of my other in mine and Raz's league, 40 points thanks to the full point PPR of that fucking league.
Jesus.
So Kittle, you're obviously going to start here, Matt. I'll tell you what. I'm just going to go right down. I'm not even going to go between the team here. The guy I like from the skill position wise, there's a few of them. Raheem Mostert, if he's back, you start him. I do think it's so tough. Now
let's start Mostert.
Right, exactly. Now look at this. This is a tough matchup on this side, but Dolphins side has let up points to running back, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. So you're gonna, you're not gonna start Jimmy. I mean, let's be real. It's a great matchup, and it could be a pretty good.
Is he 100? We're 100% sure.
I don't know if it's 100%, but it's like almost. Like there's a very good chance he plays and starts.
Gotcha.
So if it's him with Kittle, I actually think it's going to be a downgrade for Kittle. Like even though they're going to play well, I think it could be a little tougher matchup for Kittle. They are very stingy against tight ends. Those linebackers for the Dolphins are really good. So I wouldn't really be expecting Kittle to have the game he had last week. Now, granted, you're going to start Kittle. He's going to put up, I think, double-digit points, but he's not going to put up 40 points for you this week. Not happening.
Yeah.
Not with Jimmy back. Part of me thinks that the other two guys together are better than Jimmy. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that for sure, but
yeah, I get that.
I you know what I mean? Like I might be convinced at one point or another that he's not that great. So, the guy I like though, Matt, the most for the Niners, and even though it's not exactly the matchup's great, don't get me wrong, but it's not from the wide receiver standpoint that I'm looking at this. I love Deebo Samuel this week. I think he's going to come in with Jimmy back. Right, because Jimmy and him had a rapport last year. If they're both, especially if Jimmy's back, we saw him do some things last week. Nothing too crazy. They said they were going to ease him back in anyway. But I think from a running and a receiving standpoint, Matt, this is the week you unleash Deebo on this defense. 10th against running backs, 8th against wide receivers. You're going to use the run. They're going to focus on the run, and Raheem Mostert, the linebackers, are going to try to really key in on Kittle. I think this is going to open up some things for Deebo, who, in my opinion, it's going to be born in like Ayuk on the outside. They're going to utilize Deebo inside, jet sweeps, slot receiver area, and that's really weak for the Dolphins right now. I actually really like Deebo this week in both a good receiving and rushing matchup. On the other side of that, Brandon Ayuk. What about Brandon Ayuk though? He's gotten some rapport with these younger guys, but Jimmy's going to come back, and I haven't seen anything with them. I mean,
Yeah. It's always tough with situations like this where you see kind of the backup guy does really well with the backup quarterback. I would hope there's some kind of special place designed for him. If you see, my logic, you have a player who plays well, you scheme for him. You know what I mean? You put in
yep,
one or two plays just to build around him. And like Garoppolo's been watching on the sidelines, so sees what he's capable of.
yep,
And there's nobody else in here that really gets you excited. They just cut Sanu.
yeah. Did they? Did they? So
So
Cutson, I didn't even see that.
yeah.
Yet.
So I would
Well,
say he's got some value in here.
I think both Debo and Ayuk have value because here's you said the design plays. Well, they did give him some. I mean, look, he had that one. Where is it? He had the 1 for 35 here in a
Yeah.
touch, right? And that was a fantastic play. I mean, leaping over that guy into the end zone was nuts.
Oh,
So he can do a lot of the same things that Debo can do. So I'm not saying like, hey, Debo's going to be inside. I think they're going to utilize both. But I think from a receiving standpoint, if Jimmy's back, this is really for if Jimmy's back. I
yeah.
love Debo Samuel this week. If Jimmy's not back, Matt, then part of me does lean maybe Brandon Ayuk because he seems to the last 2 weeks have a rapport with these other quarterbacks. And I thought that too. If like the second Mullins was like maybe Brandon Ayuk because, hey, listen, in camp, they didn't have preseason, but in camp they definitely played together. And so these guys probably played with this rookie who was probably on the second team, third team, so they know him better. So I like Ayuk as a sleeper if Jimmy's out. If Jimmy's in, Debo Samuel. That's how I'm going to do that. Kittle, you start, must start. Raheem Mostert, you start. McKinnon, you can even start in a flex if you need him. I honestly wish I had McKinnon because I would have taken a chance. They usually use 2 running backs here. Both of them get receptions usually. So I do think McKinnon has earned himself a little bit of a role now being healthy and doing what he's done the last couple of weeks. I like him still this week, even with Mostert back. And not as much, obviously, but I do like him maybe in a flex mat if you need a desperate play with Jones out. He might be a better option than some of those other committees that we talked about.
Yeah, I can see that. I could actually really see that.
You know, like let's say I would probably do Jerick McKinnon over the Rams running backs right now. Even knowing he's the number 2. You know, it's more defined.
So you don't think we see anything for Wilson or?
I don't think there's going to be carries. No, I don't think there's going to be carries for Wilson. I think you already saw his value go down last week, and Mostert wasn't even back. You know, Mostert is going to be the guy. He's so explosive, and then McKinnon can take. It's a really similar type of player, honestly. Wilson's just a gadget guy, in my opinion, and we kind of saw that. He'll have a boom play here or there, but he's not going to be your guy to get volume at all.
Yeah,
I think McKinnon has legitimately earned some volume here. Coming back. I could be wrong, and we'll see how they play it this week. But this is the kind of matchup where I do like, they're going to lean on the run game for sure if Jimmy comes back, especially because he just came back, right? And they had all these injuries, so they're going to try to lean on that run as they always do. I think it does work out for them this week as well. And I'm a big fan of the 2 guys. Love Debo as well this week. If Jimmy's there, if not, Brandon Ayuk, go for it. Kittle, you starting. Other side of that, Matt Fitzpatrick, like we said, I think this could be that week, man, that he just tanks it. That he tanks it. That he has the 3-pick day, and I mean, this is a tough matchup for him. He has not played.
They said, and they said no start for Tua yet. So I mean, it's coming at some point, and I got Tua sitting on my bench just waiting to go. So I'm not going to be mad about it when it does.
Yep, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to big dick it if they're down and put him in against the NFC champion teams and see how they do against a good defense. Because that would be my mentality if they're especially down. Hey, let's put Tua in and see how he does against a really good defense. Get an idea of what he can do. You know? So I think that could happen this week. I'm down on the running backs again. Tough matchup here. 32nd. They give the least amount of points to running backs. I'm not starting Gaskin this week. Listen, okay, I'm going to talk about this. Preston Williams dropped that motherfucker. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm fucking done with him. I've waited. I had him in all my leagues, and he's done nothing. He doesn't get targets. He doesn't get production. Isaiah Ford is the better option. You want to go and drop Preston Williams for someone else on that team? Go get Isaiah Ford. Fuck it. I mean, fuck it.
But ass fart saving carpet store mother.
I mean, that's exactly how I feel about that asshole.
Art saving carpet store motherfucker. I love it.
I mean, that's exactly how I feel, though. It's a perfect way to describe Preston Williams and what he's done for fantasy this year.
Yeah.
It's just not doable. Devontae Parker, you could take a shot on, but it's a tough matchup. No doubt about it.
Yep.
27th against that. Gesicki, rather. I know you loved him, and now you're not as high on him. I've been trying to push him, and he hasn't done it lately, I know. This is not the week that I think he's going to bounce back, though. It's going to be a tough week for him, too. Again, I think Fitzpatrick is going to have that week that he really struggles. So if my opinion, guys, if you can phase out the Dolphins this week, defense could be a little interesting streaming option, DFS maybe. They're going to let up some points, but they could definitely get some turnovers on Jimmy. You know, I can see that. But the run game, again, 10th against the run, 8th against the pass. I mean, they're going to utilize very unique run plays in this game, and it's going to I personally would stay away from Dolphins D if you can. All right. One of our most hated teams here. We're both repping our teams today, or our cities, rather, that we root for. I got the Washington Nationals World Series, by the way, edition.
Ooh.
Golden curly dubs on my head right now. Along with my poster in the background. You got your Giants hat on.
Goddamn,
Eagles. However, though, Matt, neither of our team is leading our fucking division right now. It's the goddamn Eagles after beating the 49ers the other night.
Yeah.
And it makes me sick that because they tied last week, that actually is getting them in first place. Because if they had a loss, I mean, granted, they won, they would have been ahead anyway, but they lost.
Yeah.
You know,
then you guys are tied for first,
right,
and we're only a
division.
game out, baby.
Yep. I mean, listen,
We're only a game out.
we need to talk about that.
Oh, God.
I want to do it more like one of our matchups, right? But let's start the clock here, and we'll talk about the Eagles in probably, unfortunately, the worst division in football right now. It's a joke, the NFC East, and how bad.
Hey, we might be the worst division, but we are the most competitive.
I love the excitement in the division, though, because you know what? It's like, okay, now half the year, all of us are like, all right, we're either going to have like a top 10 pick or we're going to be in the playoffs. It's like, okay, sweet, man. I'll take that all day. You know, I mean, I'm not going to complain. And listen, if we're down, then hey, we got a high draft pick. Like, I'm also cool with that. So, that being said, Matt, Eagles did win last night. So again, they're in first place. When we talk about this Eagles team, no Dallas Goedert, Jalen Reagor, still out. Deshaun Jackson's practically non-existent. Their top wide receiver of this week
Thank God for that.
The top wide receiver was a guy from their practice squad who I've never heard his name before in my life. I had to add him to this fucking list, a whole nother row. And yet they beat the 49ers last night. Defense played pretty well. I mean, it was Nick Mullins and them, so this is a different offense this week against the Steelers, who have a 2-week rest, right? Deontay Johnson should be back for that lineup. You know, everyone should be healthy. Do you play, and I want to ask this when I go to here, when we look at the matchups here, Matt, really tough on the Steelers side. They have
very good defense.
You know?
Yeah.
Wide receivers, 6 against them. But again, we're talking about some really good teams that they played in the Steelers end. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, I just don't think the firepower is there for this wide receiving core.
Definitely not.
Let's face it. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying anything surprising, right?
Can you go back to those stats again? By the way.
Yep.
Not even. I was gonna say maybe this is a good week for Ertz, but no. Looks like another week of Hurts.
Exactly.
It's they're gonna be tough.
I am super low on Ertz this week. Goddard out is actually awful for his production. I thought it would be better, and I saw this last year, Matt, because I had both of them, and Goddard did miss a game or two. I think missed some time at one point, and it was just an Ertz show. But I'll tell you right now, Matt, Ertz is the most covered guy, 2 double teams. They're going to do everything they can to shut him down because he's the passing option in Philadelphia, and everyone knows it, especially with Ertz out, with Reagor out. Deshaun's not the same Deshaun, piece of shit. But I think you sit Ertz. It's weird to say, but it's so tough to trust him right now. And it's one of those things where I say to do this and he's going to go have a touchdown, have a good game against the Steelers. But I really do think if you had like Janu Smith, Matt, and Ertz, you start Janu Smith.
Yeah.
So very down on Ertz this week. Don't like him with Goddard out. You could see it. 5 for 4, but only 9 yards. They were all over him, and that was a defense that's a little banged up. This is, in my opinion, Steelers are much better defense coming into this than what the current Niners are.
Wait. Oh, gotcha. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'm not high. Now, granted, they do have weakness against wide receivers, Matt. Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham. Listen, this Fulgham guy looked really fucking good on the couple passes that he had. He had the big touchdown, so it's nothing crazy. Like it's a boom or bust kind of play. If Alshon Jeffrey is back, though, I don't know when the hell he's coming back, or if he's even back. If he's back, whatever. Is there a chance, let's say, for like a Greg Ward to step up this week? I actually started him last week. I had to a desperate play.
There's a chance.
And I kind of like him a little bit.
There's a chance, but do you really want to trust any of these guys? Just because it's a good matchup doesn't mean it's a matchup you should try to take advantage of, because it's a crapshoot. We're looking at Travis Fulgham, which sounds made up. That sounds like a guy who comes up in 2 years on fucking Madden or something. Like
sounds
Travis Fulgham, Nebraska State. Like, get the fuck out of
here. like the backup that's playing like one game because the guy's out.
Yeah, which is exactly what he is. I mean, like, I don't trust him. No, I'm not taking anybody. I'm not taking anyone here unless Alshon Jeffrey makes some kind of miraculous make some kind of miraculous comeback and comes back for the week. I'm not trusting anyone here.
Yeah, so no miraculous comeback for him this week at all. Yeah, no miracle from him. I don't like any miracle from the wide receivers. Miles Sanders, let's take a look at the matchup here. 31st, woof. and there's some injuries. Jason Peters, they lost him too. So the line is still hurting a little bit in Philadelphia. I hate this offense this week. I really do. Even Miles Sanders, I'm super down on him. Not a great game last week. I don't expect it to be any better this week.
Yeah.
Maybe a Boston Scott sleeper week?
I don't even know about that. Boston Scott's been shitty all year.
I agree. I think it's safe to say, Matt, let's just call it what this is. We're phasing out the Eagles this week.
Yeah, it looks like that divisional race is going to stay right where it is.
Unfortunately for them, the one position that is of strength against the Steelers, they have no one. So I don't trust this at all. On the other side of things, guys, listen, Eagles have gotten much better on defense every week that's gone by. They've gotten better and better. I hate them, but I'll admit that what is what it is.
Yeah.
When we look at the quarterback, Big Ben is a tough start this week, but you're going to start him. I think the game script from the opposite end could help out. The defense could help out the game script in terms of maybe short fields and just better field position overall, that Ben will be able to throw some touchdowns. I don't think he's going to be putting up tons of yards, but I do think he's going to get at least 2 touchdowns this game passing. And I do think one of those goes to Deontay Johnson, by the way. He's one of my sleepers of the week to really explode. Coming back healthy. We saw the targets there all those weeks. I love him this week. I do. 14th against wide receivers. Not that bad. Not that good. Juju's probably going to get Darius Slay coverage, Matt. So that means that it's going to be the Deontay Johnson show, in my opinion. He's going to be the guy to step up here and be the sleeper of the game for me, but also one of my sleepers of the week to really pop off and have a 20-point game. Deontay Johnson.
Yep. I like it.
On the other side of that, James Conner, Matt, guy who I've not been high on, but I was good. I listen. You weren't here last week when I mentioned this. Now this is my mentality on James Conner. You start him while he's healthy. That's it. You start him while he's healthy. While he's produced, if he's healthy, he's going to produce.
Yeah, you just gotta hope.
I don't think that's been ever anything that we've really, sat here and debated. It was like he's productive. He's good. He's just always hurt, right? So I think James Conner, as long as he's healthy, you start him. Just be wary that any week you're going to lose him mid-game. But, listen, this is that kind of year that's going to happen all over the place. We saw it with Austin Eckler randomly out of nowhere. So, it is what it is. I like James Conner. He's going to be much higher on my list than he's been in previous weeks overall. He'll be a top 12 back for me. Even though it's a tough matchup against running backs here, I do think that he could do some things in the passing game potentially to help out a little bit. And I do think that they'll soften up a little bit on the Eagles if they get behind, which they very well might. Also, game script, by the way, for James Conner. I think that Steelers defense, like we said, can get, take advantage of the matchups here and maybe get more points for them, right, Matt? Maybe, maybe the game script kind of says, hey, we're already up ahead. maybe this is more of a running game for James Conner, kind of day. If they're ahead by 2 scores, I guarantee you they're going to try to run out the clock more and use their defense, no doubt.
Agreed.
Especially like you said with Ben. He's looked better, but
he's
there's
not,
always this risk,
yeah.
right? So why they're not when they're up big, they're going to put on the Jets, but they're not going to go over the top. They're going to ride Connor. We've seen that almost every game they go up, every game.
Agreed.
Eric Ebron, let's take a look. Is there any matchups that we can maybe squeeze in here that we like? Eric Ebron, Matt, third against tight ends. It's their weakest position. Logan Thomas, Tyler Higbee, 3 TDs. I mean, every week people are scoring on the Eagles. Is it Eric Ebron's week, baby? Is he a sleeper?
It'd be about time. He gets one a year. So, yeah, I'd say it's as good an opportunity as any.
Yes, I love that you said that because I'm in on him as well. Eric Ebron, the other sleeper from this game. I don't know if he's going to get the touchdowns because I am predicting Deontay to at least get one of them. But I do think he's going to have a pretty solid game here. He might not get you 50, 50. He's not going to get you 50 points. He might not get you 20 points or even 15, but I think even maybe 9 or 10 points in a half-point PPR, which I think is somewhere around, let's see here, 8 points is like, what is that? 2 receptions for like 60-something yards, right? Or whatever like that. Something or 80-something yards, 80 yards, whatever. Something like that. I think he's going to get you, and he's another sleeper I like. But my premier guy for this matchup, Matt, I love him. Deontay Johnson, I think he's going to have a really good week. I don't know why.
Yep.
Something about it I really like. Matchups aren't even that great overall, but I like him this week. Really do. By the way, Big Ben, like we said, tough matchup. I would actually try to bench him this week. I do think if a game script gets there, and it could very well be this way, if the Eagles struggle offensively, Big Ben's not going to have the great stats. James Conner will have much better stats. All right, so just I think that I think Connor will have it regardless. That's why I like him this week. I think Juju will have a good week. Deontay will also have a good week. Even if it is not as much scoring, I think they'll get yards and catches. And then Ebron, sleeper guys, who knows? Maybe.
Maybe.
I think this is a week that we're going to bet on him. So. We have the Broncos at the Patriots. This could be an interesting one, depending on, I don't know who the hell is, I think Matt Rippion's going to, or Matt Rippon, I can't even say his name correctly. I think he's going to be the quarterback again. It looks like they do project maybe Drew Lock back, Matt. I think New England's defense is going to have a really good matchup today, or next week, rather.
Yeah.
I think you start New England's defense. I'm going to be really quick with this. Cam Newton's out. I'm really not starting anyone from the passing game for the Patriots.
No, I might start Damian Harris because I like the way he opened up, and obviously James White's a pretty solid receiving back option.
Yep, and if you look at this, so they are pretty stingy, though, against the run. 30th against the run, Broncos are. So just be mindful of that. I do like Damian Harris also, though. I think that maybe it's more of a James White show, though.
Yeah.
So I think James White, you can definitely, he didn't score last week. He had a good game, but he didn't score. I think he scores this week. Outside of that, running back position, wide receiver again, Julian Edelman, N'Keal Harry aren't really startable right now, in my opinion. It's a good matchup. Don't get me wrong, but I don't like the quarterback. I don't know what the hell's going to happen there. So if I get a little more clarity on that situation, if Cam somehow does get cleared, I doubt it. But any other week, Matt, don't get me wrong, I would like Julian Edelman this week. But it's hard to trust that with Jarrett Stinton at quarterback.
Yeah.
Expect a little less value from him. A guy that I do like for pickup purposes tonight, though, and people won't know this, but so if you do pick him up, I do kind of like him. His role he did have a rapport, and again, this might be one of those things where the second and third string quarterback might be more familiar with him because of the training camp and stuff. Damiere Byrd was really involved last night. 10 targets for him. I mean, he really was the best receiver out there for them, in my opinion, last night. And I think he can have another productive game. He has a rapport, apparently, with Stidham and Brian Hoyer overall. So I think I like Damiere Byrd in this lineup and what could be a really nice matchup, 5th against wide receiver. I'm going to kind of be down on Edelman this week and N'Keal Harry, though. I think the third wide receiver is the one who steps up.
Interesting. Okay.
Outside of that, Matt, the wide receivers for the Broncos, man, I have Jerry Jeudy, man, and listen, I didn't put him in last week, Matt, and I should have. I still wouldn't.
Yeah, you got at this point, you kind of got to play him if you can. If you know what I mean. If you don't have somebody better, you got to kind of go with him.
But would you do it against this matchup? I mean, what's it called? Actually, now I'm looking at this. Yeah, you definitely do. I didn't realize they were that bad against wide receivers. But Kansas City is a tough matchup overall. Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. I think Jerry Jeudy's a good start this week. He had only the 4 targets. I think that goes up. Again, one of my guys, Tim Patrick, I do think has a good game. He has a good rapport. Another one of those situations with the backups that has a good rapport. You take advantage of those guys while the backups are in. I think Tim Patrick is valuable as long as Brett Rippon is the starting quarterback. So we'll see what happens. I don't mean if Blake Bortles comes in, then all bets are off at that point. Now, Melvin Gordon, Matt, we talked about him. If Philip Lindsay's back, does that curb your excitement going up against a 26th ranked run defense? And that's points against, by the way.
It helps. I think it definitely helps because you can kind of have that 2-headed back approach, which is kind of why I'm not as worried for the Patriots playing the Broncos. I think they both might do the same thing. In all honesty, like they both might just kind of mix it up, give you the power runner, and then mix in the finesse catcher.
Now, I think the matchup's tough, but I agree with you on a very specific point that we all have to keep in mind here. This can absolutely be a huge running and defensive game. Quarterback play could be sloppy. Turnovers can happen. They're going to try to take advantage of the run, dump it down to their running backs. I think Lindsay actually has a better game if he's back. If he's not back, man, I actually really love Melvin Gordon from a receiving standpoint too, 100%. And without Noah Fant especially, I think someone needs to step up in the receiving game. That's why I do love Tim Patrick this week, by the way. So I think Jerry Jeudy, throw them in the lineup. Rippon can throw the ball. I mean, listen, he was able to do some things. He's going to throw some turnovers, but 242 isn't terrible. He had 2 touchdowns. So listen, if he could just do that, I'll be thrilled with that. With Jerry Jeudy, most likely going to get one of those, and the other one could either be Gordon or Tim Patrick. I don't think there's anyone else there. Maybe KJ Hamler sneaks in a touchdown or something, but I don't think there's anyone else there you really can rely on from Denver at all. Those 3 guys, and if that for a Tim Patrick.
Yeah.
On New England side, again, we're going to phase out receivers right now. I do like Damiere Byrd. It's a good pickup if you have him. I don't know if you're going to start him this week unless you need to, but I think he'll play well this week. And my biggest guy who I like is James White. I think he's going to score. Damian Harris could have a little bit of a down week, in my opinion, Matt. 30th against the run is tough. They are pretty damn good there. And if they can't throw the ball, it's going to be tough for Damian Harris. Although, couldn't do that last night, and they were able to do that against the Super Bowl champs. So, you know what? I think I agree with you. I think you take a shot on Harris if you have him. He put up 100 yards, 17 carries. So you're going to go with that. But James White, I think, will get the receiving touchdown here or there or get in the end zone somewhere.
Yeah.
Hey.